Copyright disclaimer under the Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing.
Dream of easily transportable electronic medical records finally becomes a reality. This will allow patients to easily transmit information from one doctor to another, even if they're different networks and using different record-keeping systems. No matter what system they use, they're all transferable. The new standards will also make it simple for patients to access their own personal health records. I don't want to see mine, please. I don't want to see. I don't know about you. They have all sorts of things, sir. They can tell you exactly what your problem is going to be in 6 years. We can do it. You know, they have all these different things. I don't know if they work or not, but I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. If they got a problem, I don't want to know about it right now. But it is amazing what they're doing. I don't know. Does it actually work? Can they do that? All right. Well, then I'm glad I said I don't want to know. But thanks to this announcement, healthcare providers across the country will also finally be able to kill the clipboard. It's an expression that's used, capital, with a capital C, kill the clipboard. Instead of filling out the same tedious paperwork at every medical appointment, patients will simply be able to grant their doctors access to their records at the push of a button. Just a button and you're all set, and all the information the doctor needs will be immediately transmitted.
Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Kodash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations to the Akim out here pushing this gospel in truth and in sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is Brother Corner Wath from the Arizona Great Millstone Camp. Come back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will. It is straight to the point. And man, we are in some beautiful times, spiritually, man, right? Dealing with these prophecies, right? And what's going on. Hey, we are in the time where Revelations chapter 13 and verse 16, right, is going to come to pass, man. And it could be this year. Lord will, man. Those that are of the household of faith, man. We really, in our minds, man, we really wanted to, this place to end, right? Yesterday, right? We wanted it to end yesterday, but in reality, right, we understand that prophecy, right, has to take place, man. And it's moving fast. It's moving fast, man. Every time you turn around, every time you look at it, our news articles, alternative news, every time, you're watching, right, it's always something new, man, right? And this is beautiful, man. It was just, a couple weeks ago, you had RFK Jr., right, basically making a statement that he wanted all Americans basically to wear, right, a device, right, which would help, the healthcare system, right, all the different hospitals, physicians, doctors, whatnot, right, to be able to, better, keep track, of people's health, and to better diagnose, people earlier, right, of different diseases and whatnot, which we understand 2 Corinthians, right, 2:11, right, we're not ignorant, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shah, we're not ignorant of Satan's, devices, right, Esau's plans, plots, schemes. We understand that this, Esau is basically using, healthcare, right, and playing on convenience, right, and saying, to better help people, right, to better, keep people healthy, so on and so forth, right. He's ultimately, pushing, right, this digital system, which is what he does, right? He'll sit there and cause a distraction, right? This whole Epstein, bullshit between Trump and Epstein, right? And then turn around and pass, certain laws and bills, right? That forward his agenda, right? And we're seeing that happen right now, right? As you see in the headline, it's on the Newsbreak app. It says Trump administration is launching a new private health tracking system with big tech's help, and you heard it out of his mouth, right? Which it quotes it in, this, article, which is, it's pretty long, but there's a lot of meat on this article, man. And Lord will, right, we're going to go ahead and, get this information, man, and grab some scriptures, but I do want to hit this precept real quick. This is Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 3. It says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. And it's not tarrying anymore, man. It is definitely the MOTB system is here. It's already been here. It's been established, right? But now they're openly making, certain statements, right? That further prove that the elder apostles of Great Millstone on down, those men that have come up under them, have been right this whole time, right? We've been right this whole time through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Right? Our elder apostles have been right this whole time, right? That the mark of the beast, the MOTB, is the RFID micro C hit, man. Those men are truly sent by Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. This is Jeremiah chapter 28 and verse, was that 9? It says, Jeremiah chapter 28 verse 9. It says, the prophet which prophesieth of peace, when the word of the prophet shall come to pass, then shall the prophet be known that Yahweh B'Hashim Yahushai had truly sent him. And we've been speaking of, right, but the elder apostles, right, first and foremost, have been speaking about the MOTB, right? They've been speaking about, which is the RFID micro C. They've been speaking about, destruction, World War III, right? Speaking about Jacob's trouble, the hour of temptation. And guess what? All these prophecies, right, that Yahweh Bashim Yahushai put in their mouth to speak are coming to pass, right? Because first and foremost, the Lord said what, right? His word shall not go out void, man. Right? Roughly paraphrasing Isaiah the 55th chapter. So, hey, you best believe that those men are sent by Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. And it's being proven, I like this. All right, but let's get back to this article. It says President Donald Trump launches an initiative encouraging Americans to upload personal health data and medical records to apps and systems run by big tech. And again, he quoted this, at the very beginning of the video. Today the dream of easily transportable electronic medical records finally becomes a reality. More further steps, right, towards the mandatory implementation of the RFID micro chip, which is the mark of the beast, man. It says, Washington AP, it says the Trump administration announced it is launching a new program that will allow Americans to share personal health data and medical records across the health systems and apps run by private tech companies, promising that it will make it easier to access health records and monitor wellness, right? Saying, hey, what, right? They're going to make it easier for you, right? More convenient, right? It says more than 60 companies, including major tech companies like Google, Amazon, and Apple, as well as healthcare giants like United Healthcare Group and CVS Health, have agreed to share patient data in the system. The initiative will focus on diabetes and weight management, conversational artificial intelligence that helps patients, and digital tools such as QR codes and apps that register patients for check-ins and track medications. So again, they're saying, hey, we're going to make it easier, right? He said we're going to push of a button, right? We're going to make it easier for you to be able to, access, right, and to allow your doctors and physicians access to your health records by the push of a button, right? Which is, hey, man, a lot of these older folks, right, they're going to, they're automatically going to go to that, man. Oh, I don't have to do this, that, and the third, meaning I don't have to be as tech savvy. This and the third just makes it easier. And a lot of the older population is going to eat that up, right? Even then, right, those that are, on, welfare, Section 8, Medicaid, Medicare, so on and so forth, hey, they're going to snatch up a lot of them people as well, man, because it makes it easier, makes it convenient. And see, this is how this damn devil works, right? This is Sirach chapter 12 and verse 16, right? It says an enemy, right? An enemy, peep that, right? It says an enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit. I mean, he's sitting here saying, he's speaking all these good things to you, but behind scenes, right, there's an ulterior motive, man. Right? That you don't see, right? Most people don't see, but again, 2 Corinthians 2:11, right? Through the Spirit and power, Yahweh Hashem El Shai, hey, we're reading between the lines. We see it. We see what's coming. We see what's coming down the pipe, man, because we were forewarned. Right? We were forewarned. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood. And this is why it tells you, jumping up to verse 10, never trust thine enemy. And we were saying this going back to the Crown Vic Royale. Never trust your enemy, man. Esau Edom, the self-proclaimed so-called white man, he is the devil that the Bible speaks of, man. If he is doing something for you and telling you that it's going to be convenient for you, it's going to be healthy for you, it's going to make your life easier, and you best believe it's going to do the exact opposite. It's going to do the exact opposite, right? It says, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness, right? Let's go back to this article. It says, for decades, America's healthcare networks have been overdue for a high-tech upgrade, President Donald Trump said during an event with CEOs at the White House on Wednesday, which is today. It says the existing systems are often slow, costly, and incompatible with one another. But with today's announcement, we take a major step to bring healthcare into the digital age. This was the whole plan, right? The fourth industrial revolution that Klaus Schwab said, right, in the World Economic Forum, one of the, interviews at a World Economic Forum, right? This is what they want. This is all a part of the agenda. Now it's happening, right? It says the system, superheaded by an administration that has already freely shared highly personal data about Americans in ways that have tested legal bounds, could put patients' desires for more convenience at their doctor's office on a collision course with their expectations that their medical information be kept private, because it's not going to be kept private anymore, man. Right? Because they're talking about putting something into your body, right, that they're going to be able to track and trace. And it's going to state that in this article, right? It says there are enormous ethical and legal concerns, said Lawrence Gostin, a Georgetown University law professor who specializes in public health. Patients across America should be very worried that their medical records are going to be used in ways that harm them and their families, right? It says officials at the Center of Medicare and Medicaid Services, who will be in charge of maintaining the system, have said patients will need to opt in for the sharing of their medical records and data, which will be kept secure. It says those officials said patients will benefit from a system that lets them quickly call up their own records without the hallmark difficulties, such as requiring the use of fax machines to share documents that have prevented them from doing so in the past, right? Like he said, right? Getting rid of the clipboard, right? Getting rid of the clipboard, not having to take notes and this and the third, just saying, hey, can you give me access, right? Asking the doctors, asking the patients, can you give me access? All they're doing is going on their phone or scanning a QR code, clicking the button, clicking yes, I agree, signing their name, boom. And now anybody and everybody has access to your medical records, man. You're basically giving the government access to your medical records, right? It It says we're going to have remarkable advances in how consumers can use their own records. Dr. Mehmet Oz, who leads the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, said during the White House event. It says popular weight loss and fitness subscription service Noom, which has signed onto the initiative, will be able to pull medical records after the system's expected launch early next year. That might include labs or medical tests that the app could use to develop an AI-driven analysis of what might help users lose weight. CEO Jeff Cook told the Associated Press, apps and health systems will also have access to their competitors' information too. Noom will be able to access a person's data from Apple Health, for example. Right now, you have a lot of siloed data, Cook said. Right, so there is everything. Everybody's gonna have access to your health information, man. You know, meaning none of your information is private anymore. You know, which again, all this is a prelude, right, to the actual mandatory implementation of the RFID micro chip. Yes, it might be a wearable device right on your wrist, but soon it's gonna move to you actually having and needing, right, to put that device within you, right? Because they're gonna say, hey, you know, this people can lose their watches, people lose their bracelets, people lose this and the third, but this is something that you can't lose. You know, again, we understand this devil works in gradualism, right? So he'll you know, implement the legislation, implement the actual technology, right? And then, you know, put that out there, and then start to sit there and say, hey, you know, it's, you know, trial run, you know, these devices, you know, so on and so forth, make up whatever kind of statement he's going to make up to move to the next level, to move to the next phase, right? And we're seeing him move fast, right? Quickly, very quickly, right? Through these phases, man, you know? It says patients who travel across the country for treatment at a Cleveland clinic often have a hard time obtaining all their medical records from various providers, said the hospital CEO, Dr. Tomislav. He said the new system would eliminate the barrier, which sometimes delays treatment or prevents doctors from making an accurate diagnosis because they do not have full view of patients' medical history. Having seamless access to health app data, such as what patients are eating or how much they are exercising, will also help doctors manage obesity and other chronic diseases, Mihaljevic said. So this is going to be tracking your, you know, like, you know, those that have the smart watches and whatnot, right? You have to download a health app, right, for those smart watches on your phone, right? And it'll keep, you know, accurate time. It'll keep your blood pressure, and variable different things, right? How many steps, so on and so forth. All that is going to be put into that, you know, that system, you know, that they can ultimately access, you know, and you know, again, matched with AI, it'll be able to, you know, send you different health regimens that you should be on, so on and so forth. You know, this is a heavy step, you know, that the Trump administration, right, is ultimately taking, right, all towards prophecy, the fulfillment of prophecy, you know. And we're almost done with this article. I think there's a little, we're at the end of it. It says these apps give us insight about what's happening with the patient's health outside the physician's office. I mean, they're going to be constantly monitoring you, man, right? Constantly monitoring. If they pass this, right, which again they just did, right? This is going to open up the door for they're tracking you wherever you go. This already just opened up that door, because if they're going to be tracking, because again, you have your people wear their watches, right? Their watches, or they have those rings that track, right? And they report it back to your phone. The glasses, all this digital technology, right, is going to be reporting back again your location, your heart rate, how many times you're breathing, you know, how many steps you took, where you went. We're in the next phase, man. Right? It says right here, I'll drop down a little bit. It says Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and those within his circle have pushed for more technology in healthcare, advocating for wearable devices that monitor wellness and telehealth. Monitor, man. They're going to be monitoring you, right? It says Kennedy also sought to collect more data from Americans' medical records, which he has previously said he wants to use to study autism and vaccine safety. I didn't mean to say that word. But anyways, right? It says Kennedy, and this is not medical advice. It says Kennedy has filled the agency with staffers who has a history of working at or running health technology startups and businesses, right? A technocracy being established, right? A government, right? Ruled by technological experts, right? When you look up that word technocracy, that's what it means, right? It says CMS already has troves of information on more than 140 million Americans who enroll in the Medicare and Medicaid. Early this month, the federal agency agreed to hand over its massive database, including home addresses, to deportation officials. Hey, so again, this information is being accessed, right, without the people's consent, right? Without the people's consent. These they're just making, right, these decisions, and they're not asking the people, man. So what makes you think that they're going to ask, right, for your data, right, or to access your data? They're just going to have it, man. It's just going to be pulled up. They're going to be able to monitor it and look at it whenever they want, whenever they want. You know? Yeah, wherever they want, whenever they want, right? It says the new initiative would deepen the pool of information on patients for the federal government and tech companies, meaning they're going to have more information on you, right? It says medical records typically contain far more sensitive information, such as doctors' notes about conversations with patients in substance abuse or mental health history. This scheme is an open door for the further use and monetization of sensitive and personal health information, right? Chester said, right? So, hey, all this is it's in the works now, man. It's in the works now. And could this be the year that they make the RFID micro CHIP mandatory? Right? It very well could be, right? But we know according to prophecy, at some point it will happen, right? Revelations 13 and verse 16, it says, and he causeth all, right? When you read in the NLT, when you go into this word, right, in the blue letter, it goes back to require or to make, right? To make all. And we understand that he's about to put people in this position real soon, right? Because Esau has a thing called order ab chaos, order out of chaos, order ab chaos, order out of chaos, which means he sets up a different situation, or he sets up a situation in where the people are basically asked out, right? They're not able to, get what they need, or they're in a very bad financial situation, or whatever kind of situation, whatever the scenario is, right? He puts the people in this position, He creates a solution on the back end while doing this, and then presents it to the people as if he's some kind of savior, right? As if he's, let me help. And then the people are, rejoice, our government's coming to the aid. But in reality, we understand that he's creating these problems, right? And having you people think, this is just some natural, the system, the grid, the heat is overwhelming the grid, like it's some natural disaster or some natural occurring thing, when in reality, he's the one that's in control the whole time, right? And lying to you people, right? Grab this real quick in Psalms chapter 10 and verse 7. It says, in his mouth is full, his mouth is full of cursing and deceits and fraud. So he's lying to you consistently, man. This is why I said never trust thine enemy, because everything that he says, hey, there's an alternative motive to it. The scriptures say if he do good, he do it not of his own, right? So he's not trying to really help you. He's not trying to really benefit you. He's trying to deceive you into taking something that will ultimately allow for him to be a perpetual ruler over you, right? Which is this RFID micro CHIP, this charagma, right? It says under his tongue is mischief and vanity. So let's go back, Revelations 13 and verse 16 again. It says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. The RFID micro C-hip, man. The little rice grain as well as the brain C-hip, right? And that no man might buy or sell. Again, this position he's going to put the people in. And it could be very soon. They're moving so fast. It could be weeks. It could be days. You know, it could be months, right? We hope it's sooner, right? But it could be within the next few months. It could be by the end of the year or before the end of the year, you know, which ain't too far away, man. We got 5 more months. With the way that things are going, this very well could be the year, right, that he makes the RFID micro C-hip mandatory, man. You know, it says no, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. You're not going to be able to get your tax refunds. You're not going to be able to access your bank account. You're not going to be able to access your health records. You're not going to be able to access, eventually, right, your home, your car, because he's saying that gasoline cars are to be banned by 2030. No more gasoline cars are supposed to be on the road by 2030. Right? And this is why they're coming out with all these digital, vehicles, right? These electronic vehicles, man. Because you're going to be you're going to have, through this device, you're going to have access to everything. And I mean everything. Your car, your glasses, right? Your phone, everything. And he's going to be able to have access as well, right? Without your permission. These are the times that we're coming into, man. And if you're not with that system, which, hey, those that are of the household of faith, man, we are not with Esau and his system, man. Fuck Esau, man. We want this bitch to go down. But as he says right here, verse 15, and he had power, as the scriptures say, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So for those who are against this society, for those who are not going to take the charagma, and you best believe Esau is going to come in like a flood, man. And apprehend those who are against his system, man. So a persecution, right, is upon us as well, man. Those who preach and teach against this society, those who are against this agenda, Esau is going to ultimately apprehend and try to remove out the way. We're some heavy times, right now, man. Some very beautiful times spiritually. We need to stay locked in as much as possible, man. Stay locked in. If you don't, man, you're going to get caught, with your pants down, man. As it says right here, Luke chapter 21 and verse 34. It says, and take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting, drunkenness, right? Surfeiting meaning, overindulgence, drunkenness, the cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unawares, right? You ultimately being distracted, not being in the scriptures. It's going to come with that day that's coming, that's fastly approaching. It's going to come upon you unawares, right? It says, for as a snare shall it come upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth, right? The hour of temptation, right? Which is gonna, ultimately encompass the whole world. It's gonna try the whole world, right? That time is quickly approaching. No better time more than now to stay locked in, right? It says, watch ye therefore and pray always. And these are definitely things that we need to be doing multiple times a day. watching, constantly be on our watch, right? Spiritually keep your head, right, and your eyes on the swivel, man. Constantly be watching, right? Because this right here, this is not on the mainstream news, man. They're not putting this on mainstream news. Now you can, look at, I think I have it pulled up right here. No, I don't. But you can look that up, right? Donald Trump, actually, hold on. Yeah, so, right. It says PBS, ABC News, Time Magazine, Associated Press, right? The News Nation, right? None of these are CNBC, CBS, right? You do have, PBS and whatnot, ABC News, but, CNN, right? All the major ones. This is not being announced, heavily, man. Okay, hey, CNN, I stand corrected. But even then, right, it's not being, the average person don't know about this. You could walk on this, the street and ask these people and they don't know, right? Because they're not watching, they're not paying attention. A lot of these people are focused on the drama, right? The Epstein bullshit, so on and so forth. But, hey, those who are of the household of faith, those who are on their watch, or on that watchtower, and we're looking past that, because we understand this devil is deceptive, man, But this is happening, right? So we got to watch and constantly be on our prayer, man. Pray to Yahweh Shem Yahushua, right? Constantly. It says that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. Stand before the Son of Man, which is Yahweh Shai, right? Which means you got the victory, and that's the whole point, man. We want the victory, but we have to be on our watch, constantly be praying, and constantly be, repenting and presenting our bodies as a living sacrifice to Yahweh Shem Yahushua, right? And in doing those things, right, following the law, such commandments to the best of our ability, right, Lord, will we be of the elect, we will be delivered, man, But that's all I got, man. Lord will is edifying. Lord will straight to the point. I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak, Wadash, double honor, say the elder apostles, the elder bishops, great millstone. Till next time, Shalom.